Itsdivya. Gee, welcome to my crusty channel. Today is a little bit different. I'm joined with Antonia from Tony Talks. Oh wow, we're zooming now. Okay.
Hi guys, my name is Antonia. I am Tony Talks on YouTube. I'm a medical student in the UK who has a YouTube channel where I talk about med school, university life, and do a bit of commentary as well. And yeah, that's basically all the interesting parts about me.
I love that. Today we're talking about this notion where everyone feels like they're getting older and time is running out. And then once you're 30, it's like, that's it. You're old, you're expired, you're like done.
It was very much, okay, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to do this, get this job, marry this person, have my family, and by 25, everything will be done. But everyone's like, oh my gosh, no, if you don't hit like your targets by the time you're 25, then like life is ruined. Even though humans have a life expectancy of like what, like into the 80s, 90s, like what are we doing for the rest of the time?
Just being crusty and dusty. Reminiscing about the youth.
You know, you're 40 years old and you're like, yeah, I really peaked at 25. That'd be so,
yeah,
it was so peak.
That's sad.
But I feel like, you know, and then like everyone kind of puts each other's like insecurities onto each other and like it all piles on.
This type of like timeline of life is something we all have when we're like really young. For me, I was gonna go to uni, right? So I was like, yeah, computer science, I'll get like a job in like that. And then I did like a year in industry and I was like, oh wait, girl, maybe not. Like the time between 18 to like 22, 23, I think especially because of the pandemic as well, right? It just like, we missed like a year or two of our lives. I just feel like that time period just goes by so quickly and no one tells you this.
Like, to be honest, the fact that you went into your year in industry and then you decided like, okay, like this is just not really for me. That's such a valuable experience. You know, medical life. There have been some specialties and like some wards I've gone into in placement and I've been like, yeah, this is, no, I'm not going to become this kind of doctor. I beat myself up about it, like, oh my gosh, like if I don't like this one part of medicine, it means I'm not meant to be a doctor and I'm going to be like a terrible doctor and I'm going to fail everybody. But when in reality, like it's just about discovering about yourself. And this is what like, I feel like there's so much pressure on our generation to have it all figured out. Why should we know exactly what we want to do at 18 and why should we be thinking it's locked in and we can never ever move from that? Like we say life is short, but life is the longest thing we're ever gonna do.
Yeah, I remember being like in first year of uni, I went to my like guidance counselor. I went there and I was like, hi, I don't know what to do with my life. And then I started crying and I was like, the dude was like, firstly, have a tissue. Secondly, he was like, chill out, it's fine. And he told me all these stories of people that he knows who, or they're doing something in their degree that's completely unrelated to what they're doing now and they're really loving it. If we don't have that wider perspective from people who are older, all we know is like ourselves. All we know is like the people around us who may be like going through like similar things.
A bit of an unexpected gap year following my A-level results to try and get back into medicine. And doing that in itself was such a big thing because especially I went to a grammar school and people just didn't really do that. When in reality, like it was a road bump and then I ended up like now, like I'm in med school now, like I'm 2 years away from finishing it, touch wood. So like, you know, it's just being ready. I got some really good advice from this guy that I used to work with at Boots and he was just like, at the end of the day, like everyone's running their own race. When you're in school, it's very, very easy to compare yourself to everybody else. As life progresses, everyone is at different stages. So it actually doesn't really matter that like, oh, someone's going to be 19 to start uni. Or like someone is deciding that they don't want to go to uni at all and they're going straight into the workplace. Whatever you want to do and whatever kind of works for you at that point is what you should be trying to focus on doing. But you shouldn't be doing it with the outward focus of like, oh, how is this going to look to everybody else? How is it working for you? You live your own life at the end of the day. So
I should go to Boots more often. Like, where is
go
this?
Like the tidbits, you know?
Yeah,
like,
for real. Social comparison is like a huge thing. LinkedIn is a curse. It's also a blessing. It's also the devil. It's easy to compare yourself to everyone on the digital sphere. It's like this 8-year-old on YouTube who like made like 20 something million. Man's 8. I was like, damn, I wish my parents exploited me when I was a child. Like,
yeah, it's the mindset and like having to constantly remind yourself, like, not necessarily that this isn't real, because some people are actually living those blessed lives. Some people are making $20 million. God, $20 million though. Wow.
For real.
What?
You forget your own things to be grateful for. You're like blessed and privileged to be able to even go to university in the first place.
It's good to have aspirations, it's good to have goals, it's good to have people that you look up to, whether it's like in a health way or career way. But at the end of the day, if you're logging onto social media and every day you leave it feeling worse than when you went on, then you need to change something. Like that's how I had to do that. Like I just take time off Twitter, even TikTok, because I've been seeing 18-year-olds that have been looking a bit more accomplished in life than me, and I'm like, oh, that's a hard pass for me. Like,
a lot of times we don't compare ourselves to people who have it worse than us, but most of the time humans will compare themselves upwards, and that's kind of where sometimes resentment, jealousy and all that happens. And I think it is such a human thing. People are always like so obsessed with chasing the next newest or youngest celebrity, and I don't know if that's because we as a society are like so obsessed with this idea of like youth and being young and acting like 25 is old. Like, excuse me? Like,
the over 25s category on X Factor was just
not
so
for real.
disrespectful.
That was a violation.
Like, over there, being sat with my family, like I'm 13 years old, I'm like, yeah, over 25s, they're so old. I'm sat here as a 23-year-old person being like, I'm not that old, like.
Your expiration date is coming soon.
Exactly. I was like, yo, we're also talking about like the Forbes, like 30, under 30 as well. Like, it's great to highlight like amazing talent. Like a lot of these people are entrepreneurs, are creatives, they're like, you know, scientists. It also then creates that like, if you don't hit these targets by the time you're 25, by the time you're 30, it's not special anymore. And it just feels sad because like in reality, if I was to write some best-selling novel, and I won't because I'm not good at essays, but if I was to write like a best-selling novel and I was in my like, and I was in my 40s, I would absolutely like, that's a big thing.
Exactly.
The way that society's framed, not special anymore. Like it's not important if you did it when you were older. It didn't matter how old you were.
Age is such an arbitrary thing.
They always emphasizing like young people, but to be honest, I know I have a couple of friends in like years above and stuff, late 20s, early 30s and stuff, and they've said, you know, it's pressure for them as well because, you know, we're talking about, you know, almost hitting the limit. They've passed the limit and some of them are not quite where they want to be. And that shouldn't be a problem because they're working towards getting to where they want to be.
Exactly.
But when they're seeing, you know, they're seeing on social media that like, oh, if you haven't hit it by now, if you haven't hit it by 35, you're washed up, and they're sat there like, what? You know, it's just like we end up like hurting ourselves, and it's just, it's not great.
I think like this idea that 30 is old, that limits you in terms of either changing careers, either finding new hobbies, new passions, dating, romance. Once you start putting an age limit to the things that you can do, you really start getting old for real. How, you know how you call like adult like milestones, like getting a house, getting married, blah blah blah. A lot of people nowadays are achieving that at like later and later stages of their life, which is why the concept of adulthood and young adult is kind of shifting a bit older as well. It means I don't think we should like delay life. Just because you're still young doesn't mean you get to like give off all of your like responsibilities.
Obviously for us, like we have like, you know, immigrant parents, we have like non-white parents, so life came with different stresses. Definitely, we don't have, a lot of the time we don't have access to the same resources. Like ASOS tweeted something, you have the same 24 hours as Beyonce, and I'm just like, no we don't, okay? And that's fine. Like, yes, we may have like the same 24 hours on the clock, but in reality Beyonce's living a very cushy life right now.
She's a billionaire.
She's worked hard to get to where she's at. Exactly, you know, resources that we the average person doesn't have, and that's fine. Like so many things that are different for each person, so many things that we all go through. We have to run our own race. I know the sentiment is supposed to be like inspiring and hopeful, but in reality, like again, more comparison that can just be so negative at the end of the day.
You were talking about like immigrant parents and like, immigrants like us, where you feel that pressure to have made it in life because your entire family is like depending on you. Like they came out here, they sacrificed like basically their entire lives just for like me and my brother to grow up. We have to make it in life, afford a home for them and ourselves and our entire like family, our entire community back home. For some people it puts drive into them, you know. It's not necessarily a bad thing, like it just depends on how you kind of, you know, treat it for yourself. That also adds another pressure as to why we feel like tick parents are getting older. It's not me that can have the privilege of not knowing what to do for like 10-20 years.
It's the kind of feeling of obligation, like, oh, I want to, because they sacrifice, like they've worked in jobs that they wouldn't have been working in if they were back home and stuff like that. Like you kind of want to pay it forward, but like pay it back as well. Like, okay, I appreciate everything that you guys have done for me. And yeah, that can also, like you said, you know, it's a modulator. Like it makes you feel like you need to figure it out. Like the balancing act of trying to do something that will make you like, you know, you'll feel fulfilled, and trying to do something that will actually actually give you the money to be able to do the things that fulfill your obligations in life, and then everyone's putting their best foot forward on social media, and it's all lovely and aesthetic to see, but then it's like you don't realize that the person next to you probably has a similar thing, or they have like their own issues that they're battling with as well. I didn't realize that some of my friends were struggling, and my friends didn't realize that I was struggling until we actually had to have to sit down and talk about it. And ever since, like, it's kind of like a weight off your shoulders that, okay, it's not just me.
I don't know, I feel like we do compare ourselves to people who we shouldn't be in the first place. Like Ed Sheeran, I always thought he was like this homeless person.
I get you. Like, he used to busk in like the local city, half an hour drive away from like where I grew up, so I was just like, okay.
Yeah, but apparently like his parents they're not poor. I felt betrayed because I was like, damn, Ed, I thought you were homeless, I thought you were couch surfing. And I understand, like, yeah, because it's in his song, he's like, it's not a homeless life for me, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, it really isn't. But I think we forget that a lot of people have different roots and access. I don't want to make it seem like success doesn't come for anyone. This just all because they have connections, which is not the point at all.
Exactly.
But it's just like grounding your reality of success. How do you even define that in the first place?
Yeah.
Like, what does success mean for you?
Like you say, put into context, like success is relative. Success is like, it's a spectrum of different things. We forgot to be like actually grateful for seemingly small successes, because like you said, you know, we do the whole comparison up as opposed to comparison down thing. You forget because your eyes are fixated on something that's like even better. You need to take a step back and be like, you know what, I am actually doing well. Like, I'm so grateful for the position that I'm in right now, and like let's just keep working to get to a place that's better, but without almost demonizing yourself and kicking yourself down, being like, oh my gosh, why haven't I achieved this already? Like,
I do think that sometimes we fear growing older because we treat old people like shit. Like, I feel like ageism is such a huge thing in our society.
People's lives also have value, and it sounds so like bizarre to say that, but they literally do. Because I think it's a subconscious thing that we probably think to ourselves like, oh, we're now not going to be relevant now that we've hit 25, 30, 40, blah, blah, blah. In my head, it kind of goes into this whole like university are the best days of your life, and like, or the best years of your life. I hope not, because I've spent a lot of my university years crying in my room because I've been only able to afford hot noodle to eat. Like, I did very stereotypical, like, oh my gosh, actors or celebrities who made it big in their like 30s, 40s, 50s. Biggest surprise for me was Ty Burrell. Like, he plays Phil, like Phil Dunphy, like
I love
like,
Phil. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like, he apparently, like, his breakout role was actually Modern Family. And he was like 42 years old when he got that role. He's happy that he got his big break later because he was more mature, and like he would have gone off the rails if he had gotten it a bit earlier on in life and stuff. You know, it's bizarre thinking about the fact that like if he had gotten his big break earlier, maybe he would have burnt out. Maybe he wouldn't have actually ended up taking the role in Modern Family.
So we're talking about the KFC man, Colonel Sanders. He did have a pretty good business career before like KFC was popping. Man was 62 years old when he founded KFC, and I was just like... So Samuel L. Jackson, his dad died because of alcoholism. His mother works in like a factory and stuff like that. And Samuel, he's been to jail. He used to be like an addict. And the fact that he's able to like completely turn around his life at what people would call an older age, just work towards what you want to at this moment, you know, like don't be disheartened if it doesn't happen in the timeline that you want. Like, I know, I do recognize like sometimes life will get in the way, like maybe you have to like care for a parent, maybe you have like family to look after, and I do understand like not everyone has like the privilege to just kind of do nothing.
People do things older, like even singers. We're talking about X Factor, it's like, you know, sister show Britain's Got Talent, like Susan Boyle, who's had like a very, very good career as a singer. She came second in Britain's Got Talent when she was 47 years old, and she's released some like, you know, she's got to have a fulfilling music career. Like, I thought that she kind of had slipped into obscurity, but nah, she's been doing bits. You can't dictate how fast or slow you're going to have your big break. You can't dictate how and when you're going to reach that level of success. You can't even really dictate like the path your life is going to take, other than trying to make good choices and trying to make choices that are right for you. But I guess it's just kind of like, if I'd gotten straight through to medical school, I don't think my brain would have been prepared for like the hard work or like having to make tough decisions in med school to like, you know, revise as opposed to do XYZ, or like to actually be dedicated and to stick to something properly. And that has made me a better medical student, you know, hopefully will make me a better doctor in the future. Like life experiences, they shape us, and we have to just try and keep moving forward and like not lose hope that there is like a better future waiting for us. Sometimes a better future is just being happy, successful, having your little family unit, having a good job that's stable and stuff. You don't have to be a multi-millionaire, even though we'd all love to be, like, or like just because someone's definition of success is like I'm TikTok famous or I'm a big celebrity, and your level of success is like, oh, I have a stable job and I can put food on the table and I feel happy with what I'm doing. Like, as long as it's making you happy, it doesn't matter what level of success you're like really getting to. So yeah.
Talking about Susan Boyle, I remember watching it, and do you remember, like, I don't know if you remember this, but when she came on here, and then the judge's reaction when she opened her mouth, like, girl was only like, I don't know how old, like 47 or something, but they were so shocked that she could sing, and it's like, older people can sing too, like, if anything, they'll probably be better.
And I remember as a young person being like, oh my god, no, she's so old again. But you know, as you get older, you're actually realizing like, no, she wasn't that old. Like 47 is not
She's
that
probably
old.
like middle age, right? Will you actually achieve happiness when you have this like big break? Because I was listening to like Lorde's new album, and she's talked a lot in the past about like fame. So for example, like in the album, she talks about like being young and being like so like insecure about the future. And then on this new album, she still has insecurities. Her insecurities at 16 and her insecurities at like 24 is not on the same topic, but she still carries that. She calls herself like, oh, I'm like a prettier Jesus, as like a sort of satirical comment on how people like idolize her and stuff. And so every time she makes this album, she always retreats back to her home in New Zealand, which like in Royals she like called it like streets that nobody cares about. But now, having achieved like huge success and fame at 16, whenever she does make an album, that place where nobody knows about, which was kind of like a bad thing in her album when she was younger, now at 24 her perspective is that place is more like a safe haven where she can go and like not be disturbed, where she doesn't have to give up like her privacy to like the paparazzi.
Yeah.
And even Cardi B, I saw an interview when they asked Cardi B, like, are you happy? And she genuinely looked sad. And she was like, I'm happy with the fact that I can treat my family. I'm happy with the fact that I have, you know, like disposable income. She can buy what she wants. But she said she's not happy with the way that she got her money. So when we talk about like big breaks or like success in like your life, it doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to achieve like happiness forever. And I think chasing this like permanence of happiness is also quite damaging.
The underlying thing for a lot of people is actually just, I don't want to have to worry about things. And that sort of thing, like you don't need to be mega rich to not have to worry about like day-to-day things. It's probably stability that most people actually want, like some kind of security and feeling safe and like what you have and what you're earning and where you're going in life. Yeah, at the end of the day, life is full of ups and downs. Just because you're mega rich and mega famous doesn't mean that problems don't exist anymore. Like are you happy with the trajectory that you're going at? Are you happy with what you're creating or like what you're doing or what you're striving for in life? But with the caveat and the asterisk of like, just because you achieve one thing doesn't mean that you're going to be set for life or you're going to be happy for the rest of your time. Because like you may not. I'm happy I got into med school, but doesn't mean that I don't cry when I'm trying to do my assignments and it's not like clicking in my head. Like no, I'm crying. Like you know, like
it's traumatic.
There are problems. Exactly, do you know, like uni is just, it's a hard time. Like I'm sure you were over the moon when you got into computer science.
Yeah,
and,
for
like,
real.
There will be days that you sat there and you were like, why am I doing this degree?
Like 24/7.
Readjusting all the time and being like, okay, like I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. And even though these do not guarantee happiness, these will fulfill me, and hopefully that should lead to some sort of like, you know, kind of a sense of completion, a sense of like, oh, I've achieved that goal.
Yeah.
And that hopefully was, you know, move towards you feeling happier, but not necessarily fixing all your problems in life. Like unfortunately, life is fraught with problems. Like
yeah, for real. I think hope is like the biggest thing for like people of our age, and also just like perspective.
No one can dictate to you what you can achieve. Like
exactly,
the Olympics just, you know, they're just come and gone. And like the amount of people who are like, oh yeah, I really liked this sport when I was younger. I didn't have the money to go to train, or like I didn't have the time to go to train, but I just did what I could, and eventually I was able to make more time for it, blah blah blah. And now they're like Olympians, some of them are Olympic champions, and it's like
really the best in the world. Yeah,
exactly. Like they could have never told you from like that age that they were definitely going to do that thing with 100% certainty, but like you know, work towards that goal. And even if, you know, worst case scenario, you don't achieve that goal. Rejection is redirection. Like you will find the thing that you're supposed to do. It's just so important that you don't put that time limit on it for yourself.
For example, my mum. So my mom got married when she was super young, like 16 years old. And so she always wanted to be like a nurse, but obviously like she got married young and like it just didn't happen. She was around like 40 something when she had like her first job, like proper job. She's in nursing and she's like taking care of like, you know, like elderly and like young children and stuff. And she said she really enjoys it because it's like she's quite like a caring person in herself. And it's like for her, like she might be like older or whatever, but she is still able to like reach for the things that, you know, she wanted. There is no sort of like set time. Like the set time is basically when you die. Like I don't have anything else to say for this topic apart from chill out. Chill out, it's alright, everyone's in the same boat. Honestly, like the amount of like people who are our age who are also like existential, what do I do with my life, and then they're always comparing themselves to their friends who might have like more of a solid idea, or people who are even like 30 and they're also like, I tried this career for like this many years and now they realize, oh my god, I don't like it anymore. It's like a lot of us are in the same boat, and I think that in itself is like comforting.
Exactly.
And I think hearing stories from people who tried different things in life is also comforting, because it's like, okay, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I don't want to get all cheesy here, but you know, like sometimes these cheesy phrases, like they do have worth to them, you know.
I think a lot of people talk about missed opportunities, and I think a lot of the time if you're going to tunnel vision, that's when you miss opportunities. One of my friends I was talking about earlier, she was 2 years into a degree when she decided that she wanted to drop out and then start a completely different degree. Now she's going into her final year. She really likes that profession. Like she likes the profession of her new degree so much more than she liked her older degree. If she hadn't kind of bet on herself and taken that risk, you know, dropping out of uni and stuff like that, it was a big thing for her back then, but now she's much happier for it. And I think at the end of the day, like, you just have to listen to you. Like, you have to listen. Of course, we're not advocating for like, oh, I want to live like one recluse life, but you have a wife and kids at home and people who financially depend on you, like just abandoning them or anything. But at the same time, it's like, look, if you want to try something new, you should try that. Obviously,
don't let age be like the sole limiter of your decisions, basically. Not everyone has the privilege to be able to be that successful at a certain age. Like some people do have like things that happen that aren't in our own control. That means that you are forced to kind of take a pause. At times, like we do want to kind of just win the lottery and do nothing. But
exactly, it'd be great. You know?
Like I am an advocate for that life, you know. Okay, well, thank you so much for this talk. I'm sorry it's been such a long time coming. So do go follow Tony Talks. I'll put all the links in the description. And yeah, that's it.
All right.